I'm Connie White with the Lake Alfred Historical Society, and we're here today with brother and sister Hunter McNeer and Flo McNeer Hamilton, and we're going to do an interview. This is Sunday, February the 15th, and we're going to go ahead and get started and let Flo and Hunter tell us about their life in Lake Alfred.
Okay, I'm Flo, obviously, and I'm going to start because I'm going to talk about our mother's side of the family first because they came to Lake Alfred before the McNeers did. My mother, her maiden name was Lawless, and her name was Lorraine Lawless McNeer, went by the name Peggy, and she married our father in 1938. They came to Lake Alfred in 1912. Actually, they didn't move in until 1914, but our grandfather was building their house, started it in 1912 and finished it in 1914, and that's when they moved here. And the house is still here. It's down on Haynes Boulevard, next door to what was the Presbyterian Church. So if you're ever riding around, see this big old two-story with a big fence around it now. But that was where our mother grew up. Our grandmother was born down on Lake Buffum in 1884. She was one of 21 children. Her father had 15 by his first wife, 6 by his second wife, of which our grandmother was of that group. And then he did marry a third time, and that wife brought 4 or 5 or 6 children to the marriage, but they had no biological children. Our great-grandfather, when they moved here, they came from Kansas, I believe. But our great-grandfather had citrus and cattle and lumber and stuff like that. And in the freeze of 1895, they lost everything because it killed all the fruit and everything. So apparently there was a train that went from Lake Buffum, Midland. Do you remember the name Midland?
Yeah.
Florida. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they took a train and took all their belongings to Fort Meade, and that's where they stayed for quite a while. And then our grandmother grew up and met our grandfather, and they got married, and they had 4 children. They had 3 boys and my mother, and she was the second oldest. She had her brother Bill was the oldest. His name was Bill Lawless, and he was married to Faye Marable Lawless. They had 3 kids. Then there came Mother with us, and then her next brother was Winston Lawless, and he had 3 kids. And then 18 years later, here came our Uncle Terry, who was a Baptist minister. Everybody else in the family were all in Citrus, so except for Uncle Terry, and he was the Baptist minister. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what I wrote down here. Our parents met. Our dad moved here in 1925, and that's when mother and dad met. Of course, they were young. They were like 11 or 12 years old. But they dated off and on until they got married in 1938. And they went to school here in Lake Alfred. And Lake Alfred in those days was a very social town. They had teas and cotillions and dances and stuff. And I've actually got letters that my mother received from different boys that would write to her, and because she was away at school or they were away at school or whatever, and they'd say, well, we had a party at so and so, or somebody had a cotillion or whatever. And some of the names that, if you know anybody, the old families in Lake Alfred, there were letters from Johnny Friesner, J.C. Cox, Henry Walcott. These are all old Lake Alfred families. So they had a good time growing up.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Let's see. mother and dad had 4 kids. Hunter was the oldest, and he was married to Patty Canova McNeer, and they had 2 kids, and they have one grandson. And then I came next, and I was married to Bob Hamilton. We had 3 children, uh, 6 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. And then our younger brother Dick he was married 3 times, and he had 4 boys between the 3 wives, and he had 3 grandchildren and a couple great-grands. I don't know how many. They may still be having kids. I don't know. We're not in touch. When Dick passed away, we kind of lost touch with his boys and stuff. So I know of 2 great-grandkids. Mother had a brother, Winston Lawless, and I'm trying to get into another family that was involved. And he married a girl by the name of Nancy Critchlow. And Critchlow, his name was
JM?
J.M., I think, J.M. Critchlow. And they came down here in the early 1900s. And
But they all been from Pennsylvania.
yeah, they were from Pennsylvania. And Grandpa Critch was Nancy's father, but her grandfather came down here, and he built the Lawless house, which is on the west side of Pierce Street, west end of Pierce Street, past my house. And then they built my house because
for his daughter.
Well, for Grandpa Critch's sister, Gay Holtz.
Gay Holtz.
So when she found out that her father was building Grandpa Critch a house, then she thought she ought to have one too. So it was their winter home, and the family, they were from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, I think. No, that's not where they were from. Anyway, they had oil in Pennsylvania and in Oklahoma. So anyway, this was their winter home down here in the house that I live in now. It was my parents bought the house in 1943. We moved in when I was 3 weeks old in 1943. And so Hunter and Dick and I grew up in the house, and it was a great house to grow up in. We had the whole block, and we had on one corner of it, Dad had built a corral, and we had kept horses there that we would ride all over town. Hunter had a horse it came from Wally, didn't it? Bright Eyes.
Bright Eyes came from Kingham's.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was Wally Adams. Anyway, it was a beautiful little quarter horse. And so everybody in town knew Bright Eyes because Hunter would ride all over town and everything. And then we had other horses, and we would board horses for people. There was one white stallion. I don't know who had that. Who brought us that horse?
One of the Thornhills.
Could be. Anyway, we had horses, and we had property down on the lake, and we kept boats down there, and we all could ski before we could walk, and just about. And we did some
Fish down there.
Fish down there a lot. And one of Hunter's favorite stories is to tell after one of the hurricanes, the walkway out to the main dock was blown away, and Dad had put a 2x4 or something that went down there. And so one day, Mother had told Hunter, said, you and Ford, which was Ford Lawless, a cousin, had been fishing. There was a hole in the dressing room that they were fishing through the hole. And they had taken one of Mother's good paring knives down there. And Mother said, you need to go down and get the knife. And so I went down with him, and we got across where the 2x4 was. And Hunter said, stop here, because we always had snakes after a hurricane. So Hunter went down, he walked on out to the boathouse part, and he turned and he said, run, Flo, there's a moccasin curled up in the little dressing room. So I jumped that 7-foot fence, and I'm running up. Of course, there's a railroad track that ran between our house and the lake, and Hunter passes me as I'm running up the hill. And fortunately, once I hit the railroad track, the snake stopped. But Hunter and I were talking about this last night, and I said, you know, you were my big brother, and you were supposed to protect me. And he didn't. He was.
He told you to run.
Well, that's true, and I did run, but he ran faster. But the snake stopped at the railroad track, so it didn't get me, but it scared me to death.
Sure.
And then I have a thing about snakes I don't care for. One time when I was about 5 years old, we'd come home from church, and I was in my little pinafore, and I wanted to go skating. So I put on my skates, and we had sidewalks out in front. Well, I'm out there skating up down the sidewalk. I had my little purse with me. And so for some reason, I stopped to look in my purse. Well, Hunter, and again, my cousin Ford, had put a spreading adder, which is a little garden snake that's like a cobra. The neck, when it rears back and the neck spreads out, you know, and the tongue starts going out. Well, of course, I'm 5 years old, and it scares me to death. But that's the kind of brother I had that did not protect his little sister. But anyway,
Just had fun.
yeah, we did. Let's see. We have a lot of relatives that stayed in the area for a while. Dad's brother, who was Dr. Gordon McNeer, he was married to Artemisa Evans, who became Artemisa Evans McNeer. And her father was John Evans, who, again, was an early resident of Lake Alfred.
Built the house.
Built their house on 557. It was built in 1920, early 20s, which is now, if you're familiar with 557, they're getting ready to 4-lane it. And they've bought and torn down all the houses except the Evans house. And it was a big 2-story house that was moved down to the lake because they owned the property all the way from the highway down to the lake. Because it's been, young Gordon had it declared with the National Historic Registry, so you couldn't tear it down. So it has been moved down the lake to the lake, which it's interesting to go and see that. Let's see. Uncle Gordon's family, he was a doctor. He was head of gastric cancer at Sloan Kettering in New York. And so they lived up there for many a year and didn't move back down here until Uncle Gordon passed away. And then Artemisa and their daughter Anne moved back here. And young Gordon McNeer, he's a language professor up at North Georgia University. But he's the current owner of the house. He's the only one left in their family, and he has inherited the house, and he's the one that had to move it and everything. And it was quite an ordeal, but it got done, and the house is moved, and everything's good. Let's see. One of Grammy Lawless's sisters. This is how our family got expanded. Her sister Eva married a fellow by the name of John Thornhill. Well, if any of you are aware of all the Thornhills in Polk County, most of them are related to Hunter and I, because Grammy Lawless's sister married a Thornhill. And back in this, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s, the Thornhills had their first Thornhill reunion, and they had it down at Lions Park. And it had to, our generation was not invited to the reunion because they already had, they left it at Mother's reunion and older. There were 350 people of the Thornhills who came to that. They didn't have room for our, because I had 3 kids, Hunter had 2, and all the others had families, so they just didn't have room for all of us. So anyway, most of the Thornhills, well, there are other brothers that weren't related to us, but John Thornhill's group, it's a big family. And then plus you have all of Grammy Lawless's siblings of the 21, their last name was Davis, and they lived here in Polk County. So at one point, most of Polk County was related to us. So uh, let's see. Most of the family on both sides, on the McNeers and the Lawless side, were in Citrus. The only two that I can think of that weren't were Uncle Gordon, who was a doctor, although he did have a grove that we caretake for him, and then Daddy's, another of his brothers, Larry, was a CPA here in town. So they were the only ones I know of that weren't in Citrus. Can you think of any other that weren't in Citrus?
Terry.
Well, he wasn't one of the brothers. He wasn't of that generation. Yeah. Well, I guess he was, so. Yeah, Terry was a Baptist minister. Yeah. Mother's youngest brother was a Baptist minister. So he wasn't in Citrus. One of the things that was big around here in the 40s and 50s was Lake Alfred, the Lions Club sponsored boat regattas. And that everybody in town was involved in the regattas. And they were just loud and noisy and a lot of fun. But we had boats that came from all over the country that raced on Lake Alfred Lake. Apparently, it was one of the fastest lakes in the country as far as the boats were concerned. I don't know whether it was shallow enough.
It was a shallow lake all the way around. You could darn near walk across Lake Alfred.
And that made it fast for the
apparently.
I don't know,
that's just what we were always told. That
boats always like to come here and race because it was a very fast lake.
Yeah, but it was loud. I mean, they come the week ahead of time and they'd start their practicing. And I don't know if you've heard those hydroplanes get going. Oh God, they're loud. But and then they had some big boats that had jet engines in them. They were the big daddies, and they were at the end of the races. But most of the time, it was the small. Well, those boats were no more than 10 or 12 feet long, were they? Mm-hmm. But they were. But it was a big deal here. We also, our junior high school, that's no longer here, but we were big into sports, and we had Virgil Ramage, who was the principal of the school, and then Coach Woods. Coach did the guys, and Mr. Ramage did the girls. But we were champion volleyball, basketball, and softball. I guess, did y'all play baseball or softball?
Basketball mainly.
But you did, as far as y'all played softball or baseball. One of them. Softball. The girls played softball, but we were county champions all the time.
Well, we were good. In the Lake Alfred Lions Club, had a softball team, and the catcher was Coach Whitney, the coach of the Winter Haven baseball team. The first baseman was Bill Ort, who was the principal of Winter Haven High School. The Lang boys played third base and shortstop. Urbanus, I think, played second base. Anyway, and they had a championship softball team. That one of the main competitors back then was Badcock. Apparently all the Badcocks, nearly all the Badcock stores had softball teams, and so they all kind of played against each other around here. And Lake Alfred was a champ nearly every year.
We were pretty good here. Scouting was a big thing here when I was growing up.
Yep.
And most everybody has heard of Gundy Costello, who is now 109 years old. She was kind of the instigator for scouting for the Girl Scouts, but the Boy Scouts were very active and too.
Her husband, George Costello, was the city manager.
Right.
And he was big in scouting.
Right, but we did a lot of camping, and growing up in Lake Alfred was fun. We always had something to do.
We used to go down and go across that old concrete bridge, where the canal that runs between Rochelle and Haynes. Go across that and go through the little trail that went over on the Lucerne Park Road, where there was a family that lived out there. They had a lot of that property. Anyway, I mean, we camped in, slept in jungle hammocks.
Yes, that was
which
fun.
It had a bed.
It was netted.
Okay.
You strung it between two trees.
Okay.
And had netting that went up the sides and with a zipper there, and
so
you could
the
open
mosquitoes
it
didn't
up
get
and
you.
you just sit in it. And, if you don't weren't very fortunate, as unfortunate as one of our scoutmasters, Johnny Rocker, he had to go to the bathroom during the night, and he unzipped and just rolled over and took a leak, and he forgot he had his boots laying down there, and he just filled his boots up with urine.
Oh dear.
That was just a funny anecdote.
So how old were you when you were in Scouts?
Oh, I don't know.
Like elementary school age?
No, 10, 12 years old.
Okay.
I started brownies when I was in first grade, which you weren't
No, I
supposed
started
to.
in Cub Scouts, but then
Okay.
But I was in scouting for 12 years, and then I was a leader for 10 years. So scouting was a big thing for me.
When you were in Girl Scouts, who was your scout leader? Was Miss Gundy your scout leader?
At one point, I did have her, but Dot Rouse was one of my scout leaders. Johnson, Barbara Johnson was one of them. Mary Gray was one of my, when, I don't know if you remember Gray Truck Lines. Well, Johnny Gray's wife, Mary, when they were first married, she was one of my scout leaders. And we were up at the, no, we may have been at the Lions Club. Oh, we used to have dances at the Lions Club every Saturday night. Oh, it was fun.
Like when you were a teenager?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, we had a lot.
They'd hire, either have a jukebox or
DJ.
hire a small band from a local band to come in there and play.
Nice.
It was nice.
Where did you go to elementary school at? Was that at the same?
At the big school. We went from first grade through the 8th grade here in the big school here.
And
then we went to Winter Haven.
Okay.
I went to Denison for 9th grade, and that was it. That was the Winter Haven had 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Mhm.
We stayed here through the 8th, and then I went to the 9th grade there, and then we went to the high school, which Hunter's class, they were the first class to graduate from Winter Haven High School,
Okay.
where the high school is now.
And there's at least one interesting story about when you were in high school, right? About the
Pontiac Indian.
yes.
Yeah, we had a group of guys. We went. Gilmore, I think, had a Pontiac dealership in Winter Haven. He had a used car lot there, and he had this big old plaster Paris Indian with a big feather sticking out of his head on top of it. We went by and stole it off the top of it and carried it around and put it on the front, on top of the front of the school. And
And did
and then they had to take it down, and so he came with something to put it in, and the same guys that put it up there and took it down. So the picture has the 4 guys that put it up, taking it down.
But nobody knew you were the ones that took
Put
it.
it up to start with.
Oh, let's see. What about
We did, pranks like that. We took a donkey that Billy Ben Holland had tied up behind his house and went by him with my old daddy's pickup and stole that donkey off the back of his house and carried it and tied it to the flagpole in front of the school, And of course, by the time we got there the next day, everybody had taken that donkey and carried him all the way up to the top of it was a 3-story school. And he pooped all over the place, going up and down the stairs.
That was the old Denison school.
Yeah. We had a lot of pranks, they weren't nothing as malicious. We just had a lot of fun.
as they still do? High schoolers still do this.
Except you get in trouble now.
Yeah, you get on
want to tell about how he came to be here? The McNeers?
Yeah, well, my granddad left West Virginia in Hunter Springs and went to Alaska for the gold rush in 1898. And he met my grandmother Florence. They got married in Valdez, Alaska. Lived in Fairbanks for,
1904. In 1904.
yeah, and then they lived in Fairbanks for several years and started and had their family, which consisted basically of Gordon McNeer, became renowned really, or however you say it, renowned
Cancer specialist.
cancer surgeon of the stomach, and he operated on a lot of notables. One of them was Van Johnson,
And Dr. Tom Dooley.
Dr. Tom Dooley, and anyway, Dr. Gordon McNeer was very a premier surgeon, and he married Artemisa McNeer, and Artemisa was a pillar around Lake Alfred for years after Dr. Gordon died. She still lives in the old Evans house out there on 557. And people around Lake Alfred knew Artemisa.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there was Larry, who was the next one down, and he was the CPA, and he had South State Brokerage there with the gray truck lines. There is where they were.
Larry built that building there,
And so
where the great truck line was.
they came from Alaska to Lake Alfred. Is that
No,
right?
They came back to West Virginia.
Well, they went back to Virginia and then into West Virginia.
Okay.
And then they were coming down here in 1925, and that's when our grandfather had bought some land in Melbourne, and when they got down here, found out that it was one of the scams.
4 feet of water.
Yeah, it was 4 feet of water, so obviously they couldn't live there. And so our grandfather knew a Mr. Raniero, who actually lives next door to Hunter and Patty, where they live now. He was from Bristol, Tennessee. And so he got in touch with him. And he had the property right back of this house here. And they lived in a tent there for 1 or 2 years until a house became available here in Lake Alfred. So they lived in a tent right behind Hunter's house.
So circumstances beyond his control brought him to Lake Alfred.
Right.
Wow, that's great. Not the circumstances are great, but the fact that it brought you here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just happened.
Yeah.
Because this was not where they originally planned on coming.
That's
But
In fact, my grandparents lived in a tent right behind this house.
right.
It's amazing to me.
They did
And
it.
then the house came for sale up on the highway, that little Tudor house.
That's still here.
It's still there. And
So from here in the backyard, you went to the little Tudor house. Is that right?
Yeah, and
my mother and I and Daddy and Mother and I were living in the attic of that little house.
Because it was just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. So they lived in the attic.
And then the house where Flo lives came for sale, and Daddy was able to buy it. And so we moved down there. So then and Flo and Dickie were all raised in that house, actually, after Daddy bought it from, I forgot, it was the Holtz.
The Holtz.
The Holtz family. And
which was the sister of Critchlow.
Okay. And what about after high school? What did the two of you do after high school?
I married Patty.
You married Patty.
They were at the University of Florida till they got married. And then I was married to Bob Hamilton, who was from Winter Haven. And when we first got married, we lived in New York because Bob was with the Florida Citrus Commission. He was doing PR work up there. So we lived up there for a couple of years and then moved to Miami with the commission down there for a couple of years. And then Bob changed jobs and we moved to the Orlando area and we were there for,
You went to work with Blue Goose, didn't you?
yes, Blue Goose Growers,
Mhm.
which was a produce thing, outfit. And then in 1989, I moved back here. Our mother passed away in 1988 and Dad was living here by himself and had gone through 3 housekeepers in 1 year because Daddy didn't know how to boil water. And actually, he called me up one time. He was so excited because he had opened up a can of Campbell's soup and heated it up all by himself. He was so proud of himself. But he had 3 house. The first housekeeper was probably the best, but she had an ex-husband who had been in jail for drugs, and he was getting out, and he started threatening her. So we were concerned that he might come and knock on the back door and get Dad. So she left town. Then he got another one who was okay, but she was stealing Dad's drugs.
Oh, no.
So we got rid of her. So then we got the third one, and her name was Nancy, and she said she couldn't cook. And Dad said, she's raised 3 daughters. How can she not know how to cook? She didn't know how to cook. So he swears that she's the one that put him in the hospital, that killed him. She's not, but that's what he claimed. She said, Dad said, Flo, you need to come down here and eat one of her meals. So I came down for lunch. Well, she fixed a can of cream of mushroom soup that she put the water in it, but she didn't stir it up. And so when she served it, it was clumpy, and cold, and gave us stale saltine crackers. It was terrible. So then I couldn't eat it. So she said, I made an orange cake. It's a box cake. And I said, okay, I'll have some of that. Dad said, no, you don't want that. I mean, who can mess up a box cake?
Right.
She could. It was terrible. So poor Dad just, and it was about that time. And we were he had asked Bob and I to move down here to live with him, take care of the house and him, because Bob was working in Frostproof at that point, and he was living with his mom during the week in Winter Haven and coming back to Maitland on the weekends. So he said, stay here. And so we were in the process of moving back here with him when he got sick and passed. And so we just stayed. So you're stuck with me.
We don't mind. We love that you guys are here, that you ended up in Lake Alfred.
Right.
And have served in the community so long.
Yeah, Hunter's a former mayor. He was on the commission for years and years.
When were you, do you remember when you were the mayor?
I don't know, in the 50s probably.
In the 50s?
No,
Okay.
it was later than that. Because you were still in school in the 50s, Hunter. It had to be probably the 70s, 60s and 70s,
Okay.
and the 80s, somewhere around there. But he was on the commission for quite a while. Our dad was a former commissioner.
Larry was.
Winston was. Larry was. The whole family. Our grandfather was. They've all been very active in the local
That's great.
running of this town. So.
And both of you are on the board of the Lake Alfred Historical Society. How long have you been on the board? It's been since the 90s? Has it been?
Probably.
Okay. And we value you both a lot. You contribute a lot.
And we're both pioneers of Polk
Yes.
County.
Polk County pioneers, yes.
Which means we're over 75. And we've been here for at least 50 years. So,
well, we're very glad you're members here. You're part of Lake Alfred, and everybody knows who the McNeers are because you're involved in so much, which is so
right.
Which is so good, and why everybody
And I have
knows
a
you.
cute little story I like about our mother, Peggy McNeer. When she was small, she had rickets and walked very slowly, and she had to drink a lot of milk to try to overcome
cream
to overcome her. Anyway, and So there was back then there was a train that ran from Bartow to Lake Alfred, and it took it all day to make
Go that 17 miles.
to make that 17-mile jaunt across the train to went through Winter Haven to Lake Alfred, and the train had a nickname of Peggy, and so then they decided to nickname my mother Peggy.
Her dad, because mother was so slow, we started calling her Peggy, and it stuck. To the day she died, she was Peggy McNeer.
So that's how she got the nickname.
Because her name was Thelma Lorraine Lawless McNeer. No Peggy in there, but that's where it came from, was the train.
Very cool. Very cool.
Actually, there's a picture. They had done an article on the train and the train called Peggy and showed. So we know that it was a true story.
All right. Well, we thank you very much. We appreciate your taking the time to do this for us, especially it's the second time.
The second time, yes. Okay.
So, all right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We enjoyed it.
We enjoyed it very much.